I've never seen a political fall as abrupt and decisive as Katie Porter's. Go back 2 weeks and she was probably the odds-on favorite to be the next governor of California, but following a few high-profile meltdowns, the polling has begun to look a bit shaky for the former frontrunner. First, Porter was caught berating some poor staffer who happened to wander into her camera shot during a Zoom call, and then she threw a temper tantrum on TV when a journalist had the audacity to ask her questions during an interview. These incidents showed people who Porter really is when the mask slips, a mean-spirited, petulant pig in a wig. I actually tried to get Katie Porter to comment on these incidents, and she reached through the phone and choked me until I promised to vote for her. It's a shame. I'm okay. I'm a little sore, but the worst part is I guess I have to move to California. I'm Tyler Chrestman. Welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Hello, welcome everyone. Okay, we have two topics that we are going to talk about this week. We're going to be talking about Katie Porter's political meltdown. As we said in the intro, it's been pretty epic to watch. And then we're going to be discussing this article from Politico about a bunch of leaked Republican group chat text messages that get a little spicy. But before we do that, before we get into either of those comments, my favorite comment from last week comes from my man, David, who said, quote, Trump might be the only fascist dictator I've ever heard of where people are trying to get into the country and no one is trying to get out, end quote. Exactly right, David. That's a great point. And as I said in the reply, I think it's a shame that if America is sliding slowly into tyranny, if we are going to be a fascist state, if we're so racist and terrible, I really think Democrats are doing something very immoral by encouraging all this immigration. They really should stop because, I mean, you're just asking people to come to this fascist dictatorship where people have no rights and everyone's a big racist. So, I mean, really, you should just stop encouraging immigration. It's very immoral, Democrats. Anyway, I think it's a great point, and obviously people are incredibly silly because it's obviously not a fascist dictatorship. Anyway, great comment. Thank you for the point, David. All right. Now, we're going to hop right in this. There's a lot of stuff. Topic one, Katie Porter, more like Karen Porter, am I right? I don't know why that amuses me so much, but I knew Katie Porter vaguely, and the only reason I know her, she wasn't very important in Congress. It's not as though she's some big, giant superstar in the Democratic Party, but I knew her because she does do the political rounds in the media quite often. So she's been on Real Time with Bill Maher, which is kind of how I was familiar with her. I watched that show. I like Bill Maher, so I was familiar with her because of that and seeing her around. I didn't know too much about her prior to this week, but I know a lot about her now. This topic is hilarious to me because Katie Porter, she's a politician. She's from California. I think she was born in Iowa. I can't remember. Iowa, Idaho. I think Iowa, but I'm actually not 100% sure. She was born, but she's lived in California a very, very long time. And she went to Yale and then Harvard Law School. She's a very accomplished lady. And she's been a representative, or was a representative, for the House of Representatives, the U.S., not the California, the U.S. House of Representatives. And she got that job in 2019, and she worked there until this year. So she went and decided not to run for re-election in the House. She ran for the Senate seat that was open in California that ultimately has gone to Adam Schiff. But she ran for that and didn't win, and now she's running for governor of the state of California. Now, Katie Porter, she's had, as I said, it's not the most stellar political career of all time. She's not some giant Democratic star. But up until this week, she really was probably in the lead in terms of the polling, or at least one of the top two, to be the next governor of California. Everyone thought there was a pretty good shot. Oh, calm down there, Winnie. There was a pretty good shot that she was going to be the governor of California. I say was because I don't see that happening anymore. According to the polling, she still has a shot. I think it's a fairly decent shot. I'm not saying that she's completely out of the race, but the more people know her, I feel like she's going to run into this Kamala Harris problem. The more people are exposed to her, the more off-putting she actually is. So there was a series of incidents this week that made her look completely unhinged. And I'm just going to play a couple of them right now, and then we're going to talk about them because not only do we have these incidents that I'm about to play, we have a lot more that we're going to talk about that come up because of these incidents that happened just this week. So, all right, one of them happened this week, but the other one I'm going to play is a little bit older. But here you go. You're going to get a feel for what I'm talking about. I just want to play these two videos, and hopefully I got the audio situation figured out here because I'm going to be playing a lot of clips today. I'm warning you straight up. A lot of clips. Okay. So this is Katie Porter. This is the interview that everyone's talking about, or one of the clips that everyone's talking about.
The Oversight Committee, you might know, and that is where we did a study recently this fall in September, and what it showed is if we don't electrify our transportation sector, that we're going to lose more than 500,000 Californians dying prematurely to air pollution and other problems, and the state could lose. Get out of my fucking shot.
I wanted to tell you that that's actually incorrect. It's not that it's electric vehicles. It's that if we don't meet the commitments under the Paris Climate Accord.
Okay, it does. Okay, you also were in my shot before that. Stay out of my shot. Okay, I'm going to start again with electric vehicles saving us money. Perfect.
Okay, so clip number 1. Okay. All right, we have actually, before we even get into clip number 1, I got a lot of thoughts. I want to play this one too. This is an older one, and a lot of people are saying this isn't as bad, but I want you to look at this and you tell me what you think.
Oh, yes, this is why I didn't want to I need the lights off, the bright lights. I'm so sorry, but I am about to get on. Bernard, I need you to turn these off.
Lights off?
These that are killing me. Hang on one second, everybody.
No, we should put the computer up on it.
Yes, we should have. Yes. Okay, everybody, I'm not that dark.
It's too
Look
dark.
at the look. Look at the look. Look at the look on her face right here. Hold on, just look.
It's too.
Look at that. Look at that face. All right? Just remember this face. We're going to talk about it. Lights come back on. She's unhappy.
Just a minute.
Oh, she cuts it off. All right. Okay, so those two, that one's a little older than the other one, but the staffer thing is what became a big deal this week. So, okay, so she mistreats her staff. That's really what it comes down to. Maybe this is just a one-off incident, you said. Maybe this is just she had a bad day, something was going on, there's some sort of backstory here. We give her some leeway. You say, okay, all right, everyone has a bad day and screams expletives at their subordinates, right? I don't think that's true. But maybe you just say, okay, yeah, sure, everyone does that. Everyone just yells and screams at people who work for them. I don't think that's true again, but whatever. All right. It's not true that it's a one-off, apparently. Apparently, this has been going on for a long time. By the way, if it was a one-off, it's still the kind of thing that you need to apologize for because you don't get to treat people this way. You don't get to scream at adults, okay? You shouldn't scream at children, but you certainly can't scream at another adult, even if they work for you. I always think this is one of the funniest things in the world about people in their relationships with their bosses. You have a job. Imagine you have a job. Doesn't matter what it is. You have a job. You go to work. You do your job. You have a boss. The boss tells you what your job is. You do that job. Your boss belittles you. He yells at you. He harasses you, or he screams at you. To me, it's always just seemed so ridiculous. This idea. Like, to me, I'm volunteering to go there. I'm an adult. There's nothing you can do to me in my life that is going to have some sort of terrible impact on me. Really, your boss holds no power over you. Not really. Not in a real sense. You don't want to do that job, you just quit. All right, I'm done. I'm not going to do this job. All right, I don't need this job. You don't need any job. You can do anything you want in your life. You don't need to work. Whatever they have this position, they lord it over you. It's so ridiculous in so many ways. This idea that people think they have power over you because you choose to go to work. Katie Porter, this staffer is choosing to go to work. Why you would want to work for a person like that, I don't know. You're thinking it opens doors for you in other regards, but you're obviously not going for that person. And you're working as a staffer for Katie Porter. You need to do something else with your life for your own safety and your own mental well-being. It's not acceptable behavior for a boss to behave this way in any regards, much less a politician, right? This is a person, politicians always think that they're important. Politicians are not important. Not really, because politicians work for people. This is something that people don't seem to remember or understand. They treat politicians with this reverie as though we go, oh my gosh, look at there goes the president. And I agree, the president should be treated with respect, but the president works for you. You pay his bills, not the other way around. You don't work for the president. No politician, you don't work for politicians, not in your life, not as a citizen of the United States. They work for you. That person's there to represent you. You're not there to represent them. It doesn't work the other way around. Katie Porter is a civil servant. That's what she's supposed to be. And she treats her staff like that, yelling at them. It's ridiculous. It's not acceptable behavior, but it's not the first time. This is why we're getting to this. It's not the first time. Politico 2 years ago put out an article. The Washington Post and Politico, they both put out articles that accused Porter of abusive treatment of her staff. She was accused of ridiculing people who tried to report sexual harassment. She used racist language. Again, this is all alleged. She used racist language. The Washington Post had a bunch of anonymous staffers who were quoted as saying that she's domineering and she occasionally berated staff until they cried. That's a person. Do you want that person to be the governor? Let me ask you a question. Do you want that person to be a governor? If you go back even further in her history, her ex-husband, this guy named Matthew Hoffman. Matthew Hoffman said that she was abusive during their marriage. She threw things at him and once burned his scalp by dumping a thing of scalding hot potatoes on his head. Her ex-husband said that she used to, in arguments, she would do this and scratch her arms during fights and then scream that he was making her hurt herself. She would talk to their kids about him being a bad parent and encourage them to spit and throw things at him and yell, "Bad daddy." Like, can you imagine? She's a crazy person. This is a crazy person. And I think, why would you want this person to be the governor? This is an unhinged behavior. You don't get to just be an adult and have a temper tantrum. You don't get to be an adult and yell at other adults and belittle them and act this way and then also say, and I want power over the 40 million people who live in California. You're out of your mind if you think that this woman is an acceptable choice for governor. And before anyone starts in, I would say the same thing about men. I think that, for example, if there are men who do this kind of behavior, I don't think it's nice. I don't think it's moral. I don't think it's just. I don't think it's good. I think that these are all bad things. You could say whatever you want about people who build the world, and if you're doing something important, let's say you're Elon Musk. I've heard that Elon Musk has crazy demands of his employees in terms of their work hours, in terms of their output, in terms of what they do. He lives the life, I'll tell you that. That guy is, when he took over Twitter, for example, he brought in cots and he slept in the building for, I think, 2 to 3 weeks trying to fix the algorithm and trying to do all these things, putting in 80-hour weeks. Okay, I respect that. And if you're doing something that's transformational, change the life, maybe you're kind of a jerk. Maybe you have unrealistic expectations. What is this person doing? What is she doing that's so important, life-changing, that she thinks that she gets to act like Henry Ford? Like, what are we talking about here? She gets to act like Elon Musk. No, this is not a lot of people would say, well, if a man acted like this, you wouldn't say anything. I would say something. I think it's ridiculous that adults feel like they can yell at people. Now, let's grow up. Come on. Who are you? Why are you so important? You get to yell at another adult human being. If you don't like someone's work ethic, fire them. You don't have that recourse, then shut up. What good is it to yell at adults? Like I said, I always just find it amusing. There's this idea that you think you're important enough to yell at other people. It's just silly to me. Anyway, this is not she's a woman, therefore she's held to a double standard. No, this is a common standard. If there was a man running for California right now, and I saw a video of him yelling at a staffer like this, if it came out that he was making people cry, belittling them, if he was given that kind of look, that crazy-eyed, the look that she's given the guy who just can't write the lights, I'd say the exact same thing. Get out of there. You don't deserve the office. You want to flip it around. If this was a man who dumped scalding hot potatoes on his spouse and burned her scalp, no, he doesn't get to be governor of California. If this was a man who used to scratch himself, harm himself, and then say, my wife made me do it. It's crazy. Crazy person. A good piece of marriage advice for those out there looking. Don't marry someone like this, by the way. Don't marry someone crazy. Don't marry someone volatile and fiery with a temper. I always think if you're a man, the number one thing you should look for in a partner is someone who brings peace to your life. You don't want the tumult. You don't want the waters that are choppy. I get it. The highs are highs, but man, those lows are lows. You don't want that in your life. Just get someone who brings nothing but peace to your life. That's way better. This, by the way, is not the only disqualifying thing about Katie Porter. I have one more clip. This is a longer one, okay? So you're going to have to sit through it for a couple minutes. But I really want to just show you. I don't want to cut this. I don't want to clip it out of context. I don't want to do that. I want you to listen to this woman, how she handles pressure, and ask yourself, do you want someone in an important job who can't handle simple pressure? Here we go. Take it away, Katie Porter, in your own words.
What do you say to the 40% of California voters who you'll need in order to win, who voted for Trump?
How would I need them in order to win, man?
Well, unless you think you're going to get 60% of the vote. You think you'll get 60%. Everybody who did not vote for Trump will vote for you. That's what you're saying.
In a general election, yes. If it is me versus a Republican, I think that I will win the people who did not vote for Trump.
What if it's you versus another Democrat?
I don't intend that to be the case.
So how do you not intend that to be the case? Are you going to ask them not to run?
No, I'm saying I'm going to build the support. I have the support already in terms of name recognition. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to do the very best I can to make sure that we get through this primary in a really strong position. But let me be clear with you. I represented Orange County. I represented a purple area. Mm-hmm. I have stood on my own 2 feet and won Republican votes before. That's not something every candidate in this race can say. If you're from a deep blue area, if you're from LA or you're from Oakland, you don't have an experience.
But you just said you don't need those.
I want to stop it right there for just a second. Okay, so we're a minute into this clip. It's about 3 minutes long. That's fine. That was a good answer. There you go. Hey, what do you mean I'll need them to win? Well, I'm just saying, 40% of the state voted for Donald Trump. Do you think you're going to win 60% of the vote? She says, yes, in a general, I think I will, because 60% of California's Democrat. I'll win them. I don't really need the 40%. She said, what about in the primary? She said, well, I'm not going to do that, blah, blah, blah. She gives a good answer. I represented a purple district. I flipped it. I can win Republican votes. Okay, fine. Hey, great answer. 1 minute in, or at least adequate answer.
Those Trump voters.
Well, you asked me if I needed them to win.
So you don't think
I feel like this is unnecessarily argumentative. What is your question?
The question is the same thing I asked everybody, that this is being called the empowering voters to stop Trump's power grab. Every other candidate has answered this question. This is not
correct. And I said I support it.
So, and the question is, what do you say to the 40% of voters who voted for Trump?
Oh, I'm happy to say that. It's the do you need them to win part that I don't understand. I'm happy to answer the question as you have it written, and I'll answer it.
And we've also asked the other candidates, do you think you need any of those 40% of California voters to win? And you're saying, no, you don't.
No, I'm saying I'm going to try to win every vote I can. And what I'm saying to you is that...
Well, to those voters, okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
Every other candidate has answered.
I don't care. I don't care. I want to have a pleasant, positive conversation in which you ask me about every issue on this list. And if every question you're going to make up a follow-up question, then we're never going to get there.
Ms.
And
Porter,
we're just going to circle around.
I am an investigative
I have never
reporter.
had to do this before, ever.
You've never had to have a conversation with
to end
a
an
reporter?
interview.
Okay, but every other candidate has done this.
What part of, I'm me, I'm running for governor because I'm a leader. So I am going to make...
So you're not going to answer questions from reporters? Okay, why don't we go through? I will continue to ask follow-up questions because that's my job as a journalist, but I will go through and ask these, and if you don't want to answer, you don't want to answer. So nearly every legislative...
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you, and I don't want this all on camera.
I don't want to have...
Okay. All right. If only she could have just held her cool. What a weird reaction. So this interview is the other thing that happened. So you had the video of the staffer being cursed at, and then you had this interview. This interview blew up in politics this week and on the internet. It is just a terrible look to have a little temper tantrum over nothing in the interview. I really don't understand why she was upset. That journalist was just asking a simple question. She said, I don't understand why you're saying I need them to win. What is the thing? What is the problem with the question? She said, she puts her hands up. You are so argumentative. And the reporter goes, I'm just asking you the question that I have here, and I haven't gotten an answer yet. And she goes, I don't want to have an unhappy experience. I want to have nothing but pleasant experience with journalists. And how dare a journalist ask me questions I don't like? Unbelievable. This person wants to be the governor of a state, the largest population state in the country, right? And she can't handle a simple interview with one question that she has issue with. For an issue I can't even understand, even if I'm trying really hard. I do not understand her point that it's being unnecessarily argumentative. I don't know how she can run a state. How would you handle that? How do you think a person handles pressure when they can't handle an interview with a relatively friendly journalist? This is not an overly antagonistic interview. This is not opposition interview. This is CBS, okay? We're not talking about Fox News got in there and was really trying to dig down on this dirty Democrat. We're talking very, very simple interview from a relatively impartial journalist. I don't know anything about this lady who's conducting the interview, but she's just saying, listen, I have a list of questions here we've asked every candidate. What's your deal? And she goes, I don't want to do this. I don't want it to be unhappy. It's embarrassing. And I don't know how you recover from this. It's silly. It's just silly that people think that, first of all, that this lady was elected to high office. Secondly, that she is going to try and run a state or think that she's capable of running a state. I don't know how people are going to get past this. And we're not even talking about, again, all of the other things. We have, excuse me one second. We're not even talking about her policies. We're just talking about her temperament, talking about her ability to handle pressure, her ability to be calm in stressful situations, her ability to act rationally doesn't seem well. People who can't control their emotions are not the kind of people you want in charge of important things. And the reason for this is because if you can't control your emotions, you have no control over anything in your life. If you can't control your anger, then you can't be in charge of anything that is larger than your fuse. Because the second that you explode, you're no longer making reasonable decisions. You're no longer being rational. You do not get to have a temper and be in charge. Or at least you're allowed to have moments. You're allowed to be explosive. You're allowed to have a minute. You can't be the kind of person who just constantly has that short fuse that just goes off and off and off. Everyone loses their temper at some point. Whether it's once a year or once a decade, it just can't be once a day. Or once a week even is too much. You cannot be angry. You should not walk around angry all the time, ready to snap on people. It's not a good personality trait. And there's enough evidence that shows, and enough people who apparently say that she has a temper. And people like that can't be in charge. Anyway, that's not even taking into account the fact, this is California, so her politics are going to be terrible to win an election. But this is also her. Let's talk about this.
She's 12, and she got in the car and she was crying. She said, Mom, Trump won. Trump's going to win. And what if I get raped and I need to have an abortion? This is from a 12-year-old, my 12-year-old daughter. And so it was really a reminder of how scary this time is for people, and how important it is for Democrats to have strategies, both at the state level and the federal level, to make sure that we can continue to protect people's rights. She's 12.
How about this one?
This allegation of groomer and pedophile, it is alleging that a person is criminal somehow and engaged in criminal acts merely because of their identity, their sexual orientation, their gender identity.
Okay, so first of all, I like to play a little game here where you say shit that didn't happen for 1,000. Did her daughter have that conversation with her? No. First of all, when she's talking about her 12-year-old daughter, why does she do baby talk for her 12-year-old? She said, Mommy, Trump is going to win, and I'm going to have to get an abortion. It's like, what? Why is your 12-year-old daughter, why do you do baby talk when you're doing an impression for her? This never happened. This conversation never happened. I would bet a gigantic sum of money. Secondly, you're bringing this out as though it makes you look good, like a good parent, or like a good leader, because you say, my 12-year-old daughter said, what if I'm raped and I need to get an abortion, Mom? Isn't Trump going to stop me? And Katie Porter goes, oh, yeah, honey, we really got to protect you against that. We certainly need to make sure you can have an abortion. I wouldn't want my 12-year-old daughter to not be able to get an abortion. What's wrong with you? What is your problem? Why do you think that this makes you look good, either as a good parent or a good person, morally? I get it. Hey, this is not a secret, okay? I'm happy to say this, and I'll gonna say it with some force. Rape is bad, all right? I think we can all agree. The amount of people who get, the amount of abortions that happen because of rape or incest is negligible. It is a rounding error. I would grant that every single day of the year. If you say, all right, yeah, elective abortions are bad, rape and incest, we'll grant those. We say, all right, yeah, okay, you can do it for that because obviously that's terrible and the circumstances are different, blah, 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 blah. But then you'd have to say, you can't use those as the example for the 99% of abortions that happen electively for no reason. For not medically necessary, not rape, not incest. The gigantic percentage are just, I don't want a baby, it's done. This makes Katie Porter look bad. And the other thing, this whole bill that she was talking about, grooming and sexual identity, she supports stuff that like Gavin Newsom signed a number of years ago where it basically said that we were going to make it not elective, up to a judge to put people on a sex offender registry in cases where the victims are within 10 years of the perpetrator and the circumstances might be different. So according to this, a 23-year-old can have sex with a 14-year-old and they don't have to go on the sex offender registry at the judge's discretion because the circumstances. This is a way to say like, oh, well, older men have sex with younger boys in the gay community. We don't want to target gay people. Hey, I don't want to target gay people either. But you shouldn't be having sex with 14-year-old boys when you're 23. Okay, that's pretty clear. And we're not talking about 18, 17. I'm not talking about 17 and 19, all right? I'm not talking about that. We're talking about people in their mid-20s having sex with people who are 14 years old, and that's not okay. And Katie Porter said, yeah, we don't want to criminalize that. That'd be crazy. We don't want to do that. All right, that's nuts. She can't say that biological men shouldn't play in women's sports. That's who Katie Porter is. So I don't like her policy-wise. I certainly don't like her personality-wise, and I can't help but have a little schadenfreude about this political implosion. It just makes me laugh when people like this, because outwardly, she wants to represent marginalized communities. She is so compassionate, so empathetic that those evil, mean, nasty Republicans hate everybody. And Katie Porter is just a nice person, but she's not. She's mean. She's a mean-spirited person. And I think that's funny because obviously many of these politicians are lying. They're not compassionate. They're not empathetic. They're not nice. They do it for political points. They do it to win points and win elections because they want power, because they like it. They like the fame. They like the prestige. They like the money. And they just cosplay this person. That's what she's doing. She might believe this stuff politically, but she's not this bleeding heart liberal that is just so nice, some old 60s hippie remnant that is in modern day society. That's not her. She's mean. She's a mean person, and I think this is hilarious, and I hope that we can bid her a fond farewell after this. It would not be soon enough. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. I let her speak for herself. That was mostly just a lot of clips of her talking nonsense, and I think that that's hilarious. Anyway, but we'll bid her a fond farewell, and hopefully we don't have to talk about Katie Porter ever again. Anyway, let's get into topic 2. Politico releases the chat from the Young Republicans. Now, this article was going around. People talked about it this week. It actually got suggested to me as an article. I didn't catch it. I don't routinely read Politico, so I missed it. But then some people started talking about it, and then somebody sent it to me like, hey, you should put this on the podcast. So I read it, and I said, oh, yeah, all right, I will talk about it. Basically, Politico, Basically, Politico got a series, I think it was a couple thousand maybe. I'm not 100% sure the exact number, but they say thousands. I think it was closer to between 1,000 and 2,000. But they have a bunch of text messages from this group chat of Young Republicans. Young Republicans not just meaning young Republicans. It's actually a group called Young Republicans. There's a bunch of different chapters, and this group had a bunch of people in it, and the article details all the nasty, dirty things that they said in this group chat. So let's say this right off the top. Disgusting behavior from some of the young Republicans. They're using racial slurs against black people, against Asians. They say a lot of really nasty stuff in there. They make jokes about the Holocaust and say, I love Hitler, whatever the case may be. So they're saying a lot of terrible, nasty things. I have a couple different thoughts, a couple conflicting thoughts about this story. So initially I read it and I said, all right, well, kids are stupid. Now, one of the problems of being chronically online now from a young age is that stupid kids are going to do stupid things that just have to live with them forever. And I think about, imagine if every group message that you had when you were in high school prior to cell phones. So you and your buddies are all standing around and everything is written down and then in a text thread. How bad that stuff would look. Some of the things that you surely have said in your life that you were joking about or you were making a point or you were being sarcastic. But if you just take the quote, it sounds terrible and horrible. So I say, all right, well, kids get some leeway. There are certainly some stupid things that I did. I've certainly made jokes, but it's all about context, right? You have to know who you're joking with. You have to understand the joke, right? I've had friends who are black, and you make black jokes with your friends. There are different ways. They make jokes about white people. You make jokes about black people. And everyone laughs because you're on the same team. You're on the same team. You're friends. And you say, oh, that's fine. Or, I have friends who are gay, and I make a gay joke. Somebody comes in, my gay friend came in one day eating Chick-fil-A, and I said something along the lines of like, wow, you freaking traitor, eating Chick-fil-A. And, we all laugh because no one really no one cares about Chick-fil-A. And, but you make stupid jokes. You joke with people you're friends with, and that's fine. So in the context of things, that you can make a joke that is off color, and it's fine. You watch Kill Tony, for example, and you see a bunch of comedians sitting up on stage, and you'll have a bunch of white comedians and a black comic and all these different people, and they make fun of everybody. They make jokes about black people, and they make jokes about white people, and they make jokes about gay people and Asians, and every single person who comes up there, they just talk about all this stuff. And everyone in the audience laughs. White, black, gay, straight, everyone laughs because everyone understands that you're kidding. Like, it's a joke. Everyone knows it's a joke. It's not funny when David Duke gets up there and makes a racial comment about a black person. But it's funny when a black comic gets up there and he makes the same comment about a black person because you go, oh, the context's funny. Or even if you're doing this roast battle and you have a white comic and a black comic and they're going back and forth and they're making jokes and it's like, oh, the white comic says something that's racist. But everyone gets the joke. Like, they don't really believe that. They're not advocating for that. I don't have to explain comedy to you, but you understand context matters for things. So that was my first thought when I read the article. I said, a bunch of kids doing stupid kid things. I remember when I was in high school, I remember seeing some racist stuff that happened when I was in high school and actual racist stuff. And I said, it wasn't funny to me. I didn't find it funny even at the time because, again, it's outside of the context. I'm like, that's not funny. It's not, again, if I have a friend who comes to me and makes a black joke, I'd be like, all right, that's kind of funny. If I have some random guy who comes to me and makes a black joke, I'd be like, dude, I'm not on your team. What are you talking about? I'm not a racist. I don't like racism. I despise racial politics, and I despise people who are prejudiced based on race, okay? I don't like these things. So that was my first thought. And then I did some reading about this group, and I realized that young Republicans is a bit of a euphemism because it's supposed to be Republicans who are teenagers to 40. And then you're looking at the people in the group chat, and you realize that most of them are not kids. There's a couple people in there who are 20 years old. And I say, I give them a pass. It's not that I give them a pass. It's just that I say, you should apologize, and you should be more mindful that things like this, if you don't really believe them, you shouldn't say them in any context because they're ugly and nasty and wrong. But also, if you're just kidding, you should still apologize because, this is a growth moment for you. You should learn some lessons. But they can get forgiveness. You're 20 years old. You make stupid comments. Your life's not over. Okay, you're 20. You're an idiot. When I was 20, I said a bunch of stupid things, I'm sure. And you have to have grace. You have to be able to apologize and move on, or at least grow. And so you're fine. Most of these guys, though, in this group message are my age, are older. 35. 35 is not a kid. 35 is too old to be making jokes about black people eating watermelon to your friends. What's wrong with you? You have to condemn that entirely. It's ridiculous. Grow up. At a certain point, you have to grow up. Kids can be forgiven, but people my age certainly have to be held accountable for this. And I'm in the opinion that when we talk about cancel culture, what happened for the past 15 years is that people on the left tried to close the Overton window so tightly, and Republicans and then people like myself who became Republicans partly because of this issue said, hey, that's ridiculous. You can't just say we're not allowed to talk about things outside of this little dot that you've created, this little sliver of acceptable conversation. You can't just say everyone's racist, sexist, homophobic who's outside of this conversation when there's actual conversation to be had. And we tried to pry that lid open. And partly because it shuts so tight, when you pry it open and it eventually pops, it's going to expand beyond where you want it. So now people like this think that it's appropriate to talk like this. And again, context matters. This wasn't a group of very diverse, good friends having a group message, making some jokes. This was a group, it looks like, exclusively of a bunch of white Republicans who were making racist comments. It's ridiculous. That's shitty, and you should condemn this. It has to be condemned because this is a noose that is around the neck of Republicans. You understand? This is something that might be a poor analogy. As I think about it, that might be a poor analogy. I think we're going to use anchor instead. This is an anchor around the neck of Republicans because they constantly are labeled as racist, homophobic, sexist, all those words I just mentioned. And I have made the case that I don't see that in the conservative movement. I still believe that, by the way. I do. I know a lot of conservatives. I don't know a lot of racists in my life. Don't know very many at all. But I know a lot of conservatives. And I know myself. There's no racial prejudice in me whatsoever. I do not care about people's race. I care about their ideas. And that is it. And so when I advocate for conservative policies or principles, it's based on the idea that I think that's better. And my deep, dark secret, as I've said a million times, is that I want everyone to do well. The politics that guided me when I was very on the left was this belief that I wanted everyone to rise, all boats to rise. I wanted everyone to do better. And I thought that the policies made sense. And then I didn't think that anymore. And now as a conservative, I want the same thing. I want everyone to do better. And I think that the policies on the left do not do what they say. They say they're going to help certain groups. They say they're going to help people. They don't. The Republican policies do, and I believe that. So when you see this stuff on your side, you have to condemn it. The difference between this and what we talked about last week when I talked about Jay Jones is that Democrats are still endorsing him to be the Attorney General of Virginia. You are still seeing the governor, the person running for governor in that state, couldn't get up on stage and say, I no longer endorse him. He came out and said he wanted to see his Republican opponents murdered. He wanted their children to die. He said, oh, you're breeding little fascists. Good. They should die. This is a guy who's advocating for political violence. They can't condemn him. I've not seen that on the Republican side. I'm not seeing a bunch of people get out here and defend this group message, these group checks. And they're not violent, by the way. Or they kind of are, but that's not the part that people are really upset about. They're not advocating for people to be killed and violent. They're saying nasty, racist, dirty things, making jokes about Hitler. Like there's a joke in there. The guy says, oh, I love Hitler. Do I think that guy really loves Hitler? Do I think he's really a Nazi in disguise? Or that, I don't know. I don't know anything about him. I don't know who, don't even know who it was that said it in the group. Do I believe that guy, whoever it is, genuinely loves Hitler, thinks Hitler was good, the Holocaust was good, and thinks everything about the Nazism was fine and dandy? I don't. I really have a hard time believing that. And my problem has always been about the other side of this is that they'll say something like this. Donald Trump will say something, and they'll take him very literally at his word. They'll take exactly what he means as exactly what he means. And you see this maliciously done on the left. And you'll say something like this. Like this guy said, I love Hitler. Do I think he loved Hitler? No, I don't know. I don't know who it is. Don't know anything about him. Am I going to just reflectively believe that a group chat of a bunch of dudes that someone said, I love Hitler, and that it probably isn't sarcastic or being a little edgy or whatever the case, dark humor? No, I don't believe that, but I think it's still a stupid thing to say. And I don't know. So I'm very split on this. You have to condemn it, by the way. You have to, like I do. You just say, no, these guys are morons. You can't be doing this stuff in modern society and think you're going to get away with it. What are you doing? Especially not in politics. What's wrong with you? If you're trying to be in politics and you think that your group messages with a bunch of people you aren't really close with are going to just stay private forever. It's silly. It's ridiculous. It needs to be condemned. And yeah, I think that some of them are probably going to get fired, and they should rightfully be fired. You have the ability to do that. You don't get to be 35-year-old working for a law firm making jokes about loving Hitler. You're a moron. Go away. Get out of politics. Stay out. If you're 20, redemption is there. If you're 35, you're too old. You're too old to be doing that. And I'm all for it. I think you need to widen the tent as a Republican. You don't need to close it. You don't need to close it off to Asians and blacks and gays. Don't want them out. Oh, keep them out of our party. No, bring them into the party. What's wrong with you? Expose them to good ideas as opposed to bad ideas. Do what Donald Trump did. Donald Trump widened the tent of Republicans. As much as everyone wants to say on the left that Donald Trump is a racist and he hates everybody, more black people voted for Donald Trump than any Republican in modern history. More women voted for Donald Trump, more whatever. I think more Asians, more Hispanics. He won half of the Hispanic vote running on Mexicans are murderers and rapists. He won half of the Hispanic vote. Be Donald Trump. Widen the tent because black people, Hispanic, Asian, everybody, they all are people. They all have common sense. They all recognize good policy and bad policy and know that Donald Trump is not talking. If you're the guy who gets up in the morning and goes to work and does a hard work, Donald Trump's not talking about you when he's talking about thugs in the inner city. Donald Trump's not talking about you when he's talking about the cartel members who sneak across the border to commit crime. Hispanic people know this. Black people know this. I get that Donald Trump's not going to win the majority of the black vote. He didn't. But he won more black people than any Republican in modern history. And there's a reason for that because you have to widen the tent. You have to do what he did and bring people in. You can't close it off. And so this article, like I said, many different feelings, many different thoughts. Obviously, kids are going to be stupid, say stupid things. If you had a list of every edgy, stupid joke I've ever made in my life, it makes you look like a monster. First of all, I like those kind of jokes. I think they're funny. And like I said, I've had friends of many different ethnic groups, many different religious groups, that's what guys do. I don't know how to tell you this. They razz on each other. The amount of the everyday conversations I've had at work with regular people who are good friends of mine would make the HR scream in any regular, if we did it in front of any HR representative in the country. That's just the way it is. You have to contextualize things and recognize that certain things are going to be bad. You have to condemn them. Again, this comes out publicly. I'm sorry. Hey, you guys, I don't know what to tell you. This is stupid stuff for you to say. It's not funny. Like, it's not funny to me. It's not the kind of humor that I think it's funny. Like, even reading some of the things, Politico, by the way, they wrote like 2,000 words, 1,800 words about this. It just seemed like it went on and on for a minute. Like 3,000 word article about text messages from a bunch of young Republicans I've never heard of. It seems unnecessary, but also whatever. Do I think it's indicative? Here's the question. Here's the big question at the end that I want to summarize this in. As I've always said, when people were talking 10 years ago about systemic racism, it's not a term you hear as much anymore, but it was a big topic 10 years ago. I said, I hate the term systemic racism. It makes no sense to me. Where is it? Because that's always my question. Where is the systemic racism? You show me a law that's racist, and we can change it. You show me a person that's racist. We can remove him from office. You show me a company that's discriminating. We'll dismantle it. But you don't get to just say racism. So when you have this, you say, this is racist. I say, yeah, I agree. All right, there we go. There's a solution. You're gone. You're out. And I think that that's fine for the Republicans to do. There are plenty of people in the country who are happy to vote conservatives. We need to separate ourselves from those people who want to call black people derogatory words. I'm sorry. You don't get to be in the tent anymore. Those are the people we can do without. Because I'll take the black and Hispanic vote that has come over to the Republican side over the white supremacist vote that accounts for no one. Nobody in this country really believes in white supremacy. Not really. But we pretend it does. That's why we have to make this a big article, because we have to pretend that there's a counter to Jay Jones in Virginia. And there's not. Jay Jones wished death on his opponent. Even this nasty stuff is just stupid. Just stupid, ugly humor. And I think, by the way, more than likely, this is just about somebody in the group chat being vindictive. It's not about principles. It's not about anything. It's just about somebody got spurred, and then now they're being vindictive. And that's fine. Whatever. Like I said, all I've seen is condemnation of these words. Whereas Jay Jones, he can't lose an endorsement. These Republicans are going to lose their jobs. And that's a big difference between the left and the right, and I think it's a good thing. I think we need to keep that where it is. Anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed the episode. As always, questions, comments below. Questions, comments, concerns down below, and I'll address them. And hopefully, if you do well, if you leave me something insightful and or funny, then we'll read it on next week's show. Until then, hope you guys enjoy your week, and I will catch you next Friday.